Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Scrambling and Rambling podcast with Becca and Greg. I, of course, am one of your co hosts, Greg, and joining me as always is the lovely and talented Becca. Becca, how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you
I feel
doing?
I'm doing great. I feel like it's in April, like spring is coming. I feel it, but we never really had winters, so
It's an
it's,
unearned spring, but it
yeah,
is here. Yeah.
we're not really celebrating anything weather wise, but podcast wise, we are definitely celebrating our guests today. Who do we have with us?
Yes. Well, as usual, I have my little intro, although usually my intro is like I pull it offline. This one I wrote myself, so we're going to see how it goes. And
Love it.
then our guest can correct me or add to it afterward. But here we are. Today's guest is an outdoors conservation advocate, content creator, a bookworm, thrifting extraordinaire, and a stylish diva on the trail. She is Lenny Nelson. Hello, Lenny. Welcome.
Rebecca, what an introduction. I'm literally blushing. I don't know if you can see, but that was very kind.
Well, and some of this I've like just kind of gathered
hmm
from, following you on Instagram and we've met before. But what else? Like I didn't know how up to date certain things were. At one point you were in grad school. So,
Yeah,
yeah, why don't you fill us in on like the gaps of in that introduction or yeah, what's
sure.
going
So
on?
I graduated with my Master's of Science in Natural Resource Conservation this last May. And so I'm still in the process of getting my research published. And so I've kind of got my paws in this conservation science, but I also then do content creation, a bit of lifestyle, a bit of environmental advocacy, kind of tying that Master of Science with my background in whitewater rafting. And so at any given time, I'm doing a few different things in one little bubble, whether it be research or just hiking one of my favorite trails.
Yes, yes. Very busy doing a lot of fun things.
Yes, I don't sit still very well.
Yeah.
So was it your like degree in environmental studies? Like, is that what led you to the outdoors, or did the outdoors lead you to that line of study?
Yeah, it was the latter. So I didn't grow up even remotely outdoorsy. Like you could not pay me to touch grass. It was bad. I wouldn't go to the pool. I just wanted to be inside. So the bookworm thing has always held true. I love to read, write, craft. I'm really creative brained. So this like survival instinct, toughness, analytical mindset that I always attributed to the outdoors was something I didn't feel I possessed. So naturally during COVID, like many other people, I was like, just something's got to give, something's got to change. It was that time in undergrad when your parents start saying, hey, look at internships. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I refuse. And I don't know why I refused. I used to collect Kate Spade purses. So that was the mindset I was in when I was applying to seasonal work jobs out of nowhere. A shock to everyone in my life. Again, like I said, couldn't pay me to touch grass. So I applied to all of these different seasonal work positions. It was somewhere between like 75 and 100 at least. So when I talk to people about seasonal work, I'm like, don't get discouraged, just keep applying. And I heard back from two because again, I had no skills. There was nothing about me. I've always been the personality hire. So the first one I hear back from is Yellowstone, and I would be changing sheets and doing like cleaning in the rooms. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to be the like touch point girl for people's rooms on vacation. I don't know what I'm going to find in there that doesn't sound like me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to kind of give it up, give it to the universe. And if the right thing is meant for me, it'll show up. I had totally forgotten I applied to be a whitewater raft guide because I'd never been on a river and I'd never been on a boat. So why would I do that? Long story short, I got a call from who would end up hiring me saying, I need more strong women on my team. And I never really looked at myself as a strong woman. So hearing that, I was like, oh, like, okay, yeah, like stroke my ego. Come on, let's go. I moved out to Colorado summer of 2021, I believe. So it was kind of fresh out of the big elements of lockdown, still quite closed off, but it was that era where people could travel and get outside, but we were still wearing masks and stuff. So I went out and trained. I was bottom of my class out of 12 people. I was probably bottom three easily, but I just fell in love with this ability to bring people out into nature, and while they fell in love with it, I was falling in love with it too. And it was I can't explain why I decided I needed or wanted to do that. People ask me that all the time, like, oh, like what turned you in raft guide? I have no idea. I just woke up one day and said that something's different. And I went and did it, and it just was like my soul was being tugged out here. So now, all these years later, I live in the community that I started guiding in. I don't whitewater raft guide anymore, but I fell in love with the community and the river, and that love for the river and connecting people with it led me to want to learn more about it. So again, remember I said I was very creative brain, which means I'm not good at math and I'm not good at science. So naturally I said, let's go get a master's of science. I said, yeah, I've done one really hard thing. I turned myself into a raft guide. I could probably do another hard thing and survive it. And so after a few seasons of raft guiding, I went to Montana to study water conservation, and I did my thesis work on the river that made me a river person. So a very long-winded way of saying the river found me.
That's so wild because I knew you had been a raft guide, but I just assumed that you, like, I knew that you didn't identify as like super outdoorsy when you were younger. And so I was like, oh, maybe like that was the exception. That's so cool that you just, it's kind of like Legally Blonde when she decides to go to law school. And you're like, what? Like, it's hard. I can do this.
I've always kind of scripted myself as like the Elle Woods of the outdoors, or like the Elle Woods of water conservation, because like I didn't fit in, and I still don't fit in. But I think that's maybe what makes wanting to do content so strong in my heart, is like, you don't have to fit this mold. You can show up in your pink little dress and still go summit a mountain.
Yeah. So how did you get into the content creation then? At what point did that start happening?
Yeah, so that started a year prior during, again, COVID, but this was during lockdown, so it was 2021. My family and I went out to the Black Hills. I'm from South Dakota originally, and my sisters had TikTok, and at the time it was still a dancing app. And so like really as a joke, I had downloaded it. And so now the joke is that the joke went, it's way out of hand because I'm still keeping up with the bit. But I posted one like granola girl video. I don't know why I resonated with that, because I wasn't that at the time. I liked the planet, I liked the smart wool socks, but like I wasn't in that world yet. But I just kind of placed myself in there without really knowing why, or why I even wanted to. And it just kind of kept growing from there. My page has gone through a lot of transitions, but when I became a raft guide, I had kind of started filming in my college apartment, like, oh, I'm going to move out to Colorado and I'm going to be a raft guide. And so naturally I kept filming that stuff, and I realized I was able to connect with people that saw themselves like me, as someone that wasn't outdoorsy, but just had this pull towards it, whether it be in terms of like seasonal work, or just in terms of like, I care about the planet, I want to know more about it. And so I felt like I started building out this community of people that never felt like they had seen a place in the outdoor industry for them, or a place to be taken seriously within that, and that we could kind of do that together.
So a little bit more on that, like you didn't have, you didn't have the background in it. You said it's not really your game, your style, and you just went out there. So how was it then communicating and talking to the people who you were inspiring? And it's like the teacher who's one page ahead in the textbook. Like, did you feel like you were just kind of like, teaching people about these things that you just learned yesterday, or how did that work?
No, I feel like I was the one behind in the textbook, because I had all these people that were like, I'm in a similar place. Here's what I learned. Here's what I did. Have you considered this? And so I feel like all of this knowledge, I cannot credit to myself or my own will to want to go do it. It was all these people that showed up and were like, I'm in a similar boat. Have you tried doing this? Or have you considered this? And have you started hiking? And there's this really cool trail nearby. And that is what continued to grow that community. And so I always say, like, it's not an audience that I'm sitting here with. It's a community. The page isn't anything without everyone that drives it and makes it possible. And so over time, I certainly started to develop my own wealth of knowledge. And so then it became more about reciprocity. So I was able to share tidbits from my, science background, as I have now. It's still crazy that I can say that. I never thought that day would come. So I'd share, tidbits about the environmental science that I was working on, but then someone else would maybe have a great tip on a trail snack. And so it just became this like group of online divas that were like, I'm out here, I'm having fun, like, let's all be best friends. And that's what like really generated the long-term want to be on social media, because it can be a really weird place, especially nowadays. But it all came from them honestly driving it, and them keeping me going.
And I feel like as you've kind of like gotten into different things, your social media kind of like, or the, I guess maybe focus of your content kind of like is a little bit fluid, but it's all very much like you. Do you feel like the community that follows you, or that's like
Mhm.
that you're a part of on social media, do you feel like that has changed? Do you feel like that's kind of been the same? Yeah, what's that
Yeah.
experience like?
I feel like I've definitely got some incredible ride or dies that have just been here. So there was a little interim where I was not talking about granola girl lifestyle. I was making like manifestation content. And I have people that were there in the very beginning for the outdoor stuff, for the manifestation stuff, which was just a completely different thing, to the grad school content. So I definitely have people that have just like always been part of this community, and it's like we've grown up outside together. But then depending on where I am in my life and what I'm talking about, because like you said, it kind of ebbs and flows with where I am and what I'm doing. I've had people change quite a bit, and a lot of turnover of like, this person might love me for like 6 months and then they cannot stand me for the next 6 months. And that's okay too.
Yeah, how do you, so I, this is an aspect of like content creation that like you and Greg both could probably speak to this because I don't know, but I'm always so curious about this. Like, what is it like from your side of the screen, really, of like when you think about not just the act of making a video and posting it, but like interacting with other people and how they treat you and like all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff? Like, how is that for you guys? It's probably for both of you.
Yeah. Greg, how do you like what I want to know what you think about this?
Yeah, so it's a little different. I think as a guy, it's a little bit easier to make content. People, like I feel it's bad, but women, they will comment on your appearance and things like that, and I get a little bit of that. But I have the group of people that again have followed me, kind of like you said, for forever. It's
Hmm.
hard to communicate with all of them. Like there were stretches where I was getting like 20 million views a video, and
Yeah.
like trying to keep up with comments and things like that was really hard. And then like they change an algorithm, and now I'm down to, and it just ebbs and flows and things like that. But like I've gone everywhere from like having people put my address online to and having death threats, and you're just like, really, over a joke I told on Instagram, and it wasn't even
That
like,
is wild.
like that's
Yeah.
what you're upset about right now. And yeah, it's, you want to get like, I feel like social media, and I talked to somebody at a trade show I was at, and she's like, oh my God, I feel like I hike with you every day because I watch your Instagram
Oh,
every day. And I was like,
yeah.
that's great. But then at the same time, I'm like, I don't actually know you very, like I know you, but I don't know you in that, like, you know me a lot better than I know you. And I think, I don't know if you've had this, Lenny, where like
Yeah.
I've had people run at me in the woods, and I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
what's happening here? And then they're like, they'll get there and they'll be like, I love your stuff so much. I just had to come over and meet you. And I'm like, okay, cool, but you could just wave and say hi too. You don't have to sprint at me through the woods,
Yeah.
because that
Yes.
it's kind of scary sometimes. But it's, I think people like see so much of us as content creators, and it's hard to understand that we don't see their life every single day like they see our lives every day. And like some people we do follow back and see some of their stories, but I do think it's a challenge, with that connection, because there's always more. It's like more one-sided than the other, and it's hard to meet. Like when I meet people in public, I'm kind of shy about it, because I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't really know who you are, and you're talking to me, you're like, oh man, that thing you did 6 weeks ago was hilarious, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't remember. Like, I'm so, and it's like you're trying your best to be, and like I love to say hi to people. I love to talk to people about hiking and things like that. But like I don't, know them as well as they know me, and it's kind of like that awkward moment. It makes me like seem overly shy, I think, out
Yeah.
in public when you see somebody. And online, it's easier to have that conversation. I don't know if I answered your question, Becca, but I figured I'd just ramble
Yeah.
on long
No,
enough, and
yeah.
eventually I'd get there.
I really resonate with that. And I'd say I have a pretty similar experience. I would say overwhelmingly, it's been really positive. I've gotten
Hmm.
really lucky. Not everyone has that same experience, but across the board, I feel like I've been quite insulated from a lot of different things. And I've actually made a ton of friends through my social media. So like I'll go and someone will be like, oh, I recognize you from blah, blah, blah. I used to raft guide. And I'm thinking they guided on the same river. And sometimes they did, but they're like, but I
Hmm.
know you from social media. I don't know you from guiding. So I've made like my best friend in the whole entire world. Her name's Meridian. I met her because she recognized my social media, messaged me personally, and was like, hey, I go to law school where you're going to grad school. I'd love to like go to the farmer's market together. And so overwhelmingly, it's been very positive. The inverse of that is something that's really interesting and in a very current issue among people that talk about conservation and sustainability is this interesting I don't know if I want to say like pedestal that someone will put you on when you start talking about these issues, but you start to lose your humanness, and people start
Mm-hmm.
seeing you more of as a mouthpiece than as a person. And this is something I talk a lot about with fellow creators. And actually, the reason I've had to step back from a lot of my more conservation tailored content is my videos are getting taken down, my content is being censored. That's a huge issue. But on top of that, what I started noticing is that the more I started speaking about conservation issues that I did know about, right? Like I've done my research, I have a background in this, I have research coming out on the same subject. I would have these incredibly hateful comments. And they weren't
Mm-hmm.
from people I didn't know, they were from my followers. They were from my own community. And that's what was really difficult is like some guy who clearly doesn't know what he's talking about coming and telling me I'm an idiot. I don't really care. I'm not going to lose sleep over that. But someone who decides to take time out of their day to watch my content, to be part of this community, for someone like that, that's a little more skin in the game to me. It's like you've chosen to be here, and now you're in my DMs sending me death threats because I talked about this, but I didn't talk about that, and I didn't talk about this well
Mm-hmm.
enough. And so that started getting really tricky as I was starting to gain all these followers from talking about sustainability issues that I felt very passionately about, certainly. But I'm also a person who is completely imperfect and will never be perfect in the eyes of sustainability because there is no perfect environmentalism. But the pressure to be perfect, to tell others to be perfect, to speak on every single subject and be, articulate on it and be well educated on it. The pressure got so immense that I almost just had to leave social media. I would wake up in the middle of the night with these panic attacks. And then I'm like, this is dumb. Like, there's no reason for this. And so that's the one thing I will say has been quite difficult. And it's heartbreaking because like I went to school for this. Obviously, I'm so
Right.
passionate about spreading environmentalism with other people, especially like other young girly women. So then to receive that kind of like nasty
Mm-hmm.
behavior, that's been like extremely troubling. And I want to get back more into that content, but I'll be honest, like I just don't right now have a thick enough skin to constantly deal with harassment in my DMs. And so that's the big differentiator. People being like, you share a trail with me, you didn't send the exact coordinates. I think you're a brat. Okay, great. Like I don't
Yeah.
really care. But
Right.
I just get some real nasty stuff, and it happens now whenever I talk about anything of importance. So then I go back and I'm like, well, I guess I'll film my little river day because today I just can't handle 100 people telling me that I shouldn't be here and I'm not worth speaking. You know what I mean? Which is a long-winded way to say most people are amazing. You just get those
Yeah.
few that kind of try to ruin it.
I've had that too, where people are like asking me, they're like, why didn't you speak out about
Yeah,
whatever was in the news that day? And I'm like, because I do outdoor content. And I actually had to do a post at one point where I was like, my goal is to be a 30-second break for people from
yeah,
the scrolling and the negativity and the horrible news. And I try to keep it positive and just show you the
yeah,
outdoors. And like, I think it was about, the Minneapolis riots and all that stuff. So I was like, why aren't you talking about that? And it was like, I'm not in Minneapolis, so
yeah,
like I could talk about it, but also people need a break from that every once in a while. And I feel like so many times there's like a content creator who's not there. Like I don't want to speak to it and be wrong because I'm not there. And now in the world of AI, in the world of you
Hmm.
don't really know what to believe online, and like the algorithm pushes you so far in extreme directions on either way. Like I talk about what I know, I try to talk about what I know. And again, like
yeah,
I'm like, I just want to give you guys a break. Like I don't think every content creator should be asked to be an expert on everything that's going on in the world because do gas prices suck? Yes, I think gas prices suck right now because it costs me a lot of money to fill up my gas. Do I know all of the geopolitical reasons why gas prices suck and the fact that there's taxes on them and there's the Iran war? And
yeah,
no, like that's not my world. But if you wanted me to tell you the cool place to go and get in nature and get away from all of that stuff, I will show you that, and like I'll give you that 30 seconds of your life back. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's weird when it comes to not weird because again I love 99% of the
yeah,
aspects of content
yeah,
creation and the communities we build.
yeah,
But like I think contract or content creators get ahead of their skis sometimes, where they think that they're like, I have 100,000 followers, so now I'm super popular in the world and I can tell everybody how to live their life.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, like I'll speak to what I know, at least I
Yeah.
think.
I really fell into that trap and I started speaking on things that I felt really pressured to speak on and that yes I agreed with and I felt strongly about, but like at the end of the day I was in grad school and working and now I'm employed, and so I didn't have time to do the amount of
Mm-hmm.
research that really should be used in creating those videos. And the other troublesome thing is like I might know like this thing right here, but unfortunately if I speak about this thing right here, it's now expected I speak about all of these things here, and I'm not well educated on all those things. And the other thing I started noticing is like awareness is incredible and it's very important. But if we have every content creator speaking to awareness with no calls to action, where are we drowning out where we could actually be making improvements in the things happening? And so I started shifting and being like, okay, if I don't have a CTA for this, if I don't have, even if it's just like a petition, just something someone can do to take action, then maybe I shouldn't be speaking about it. You know what I mean? And that I think is something a lot of people don't like, and I've definitely lost people's respect and attention for operating that way. But at the end of the day, I can't be well educated on every single subject, and I just refuse to be someone that brings more chaos into the world. I already did that. I've already made content that I look back now and I'm like, what the heck was I doing? It's
And
yeah, but
there's
that's the learning curve of all this.
and there's also a point where I feel like content creators are starting to ask more and more of their audience, where
Mhm.
it's like either go buy something in my TikTok shop, or here's a link to this, or click a
Yeah,
link to that, or sign this petition, do this, and it's just becoming oversaturated,
yeah,
in the world of you know you always have to do something for me. And I'm like, for me, I'm like, I'll write reviews and I'll have affiliate links on there, but I'm like, yeah, buy it if you want, here you go. If you do, click this link or whatever. I don't believe in that like kind of hard pressure to tell
yeah,
somebody, you follow me, so you better go sign this, or you follow me. Like, I do think that awareness is important, and to the point of like go here's a link of this, is like educate yourself,
yeah,
like read
absolutely.
along, follow along on the story. But I do think that so many people are out there, and they've kind of saturated the market with, do this
Yeah.
for me because I told you so. And
Mhm.
like, it's a crazy world, and social media keeps it ebbs and flows, and it flies and flops. And I
Yeah.
think we're into that really scary part now, where there's AI content that's telling people one thing. There's complete AI influencers who, like,
Oh yeah.
nobody knows who they are, and they're like,
Yeah.
you know. But then you also have the people that went to Hanging Lake and got in, walked on that log and jumped in the lake just to get clicks and views, and started damaging, nature because they wanted a click. I'm going to go out and rant here. Sorry, Becca. I know you haven't been able to ask a
This
question for a
is
second,
no, this is
but
so like these are all things I've been curious about, and I'm sure other people are too. So I love that both of you
so Lenny, I
are
want to
sharing
ask you
this.
this. Okay, this one drives me nuts. We are content creators in the outdoor space, and our job is to talk about doing things the right way, right?
Yes. Yes.
Why do so many people have drones, and they're flying these great drone shots, and they're showing these amazing drone shots of places that drones aren't allowed to be? It drives me absolutely insane. And I've had drone companies come to me and be like, your content would be so much better with a drone. Here, we'll give you a drone. And I'm like, no, like, I am not flying a drone where it's illegal to fly a drone. Ah, it
Exactly.
drives. I had to rant. I'm sorry about that.
No, I respect it. I agree. And with things like that, I do think there's an element of like some people truly don't know. And so where can you use an expertise that you do have in a subject to bring that awareness and help change someone's mind or educate them further on something? But my thing is always like, okay, I have all these subjects and many of them I could speak on, but there's so many more that I can't. And so where's the line of where my uneducated voice on the subject takes up the space or waters down the conversation from the people who are educated on it? One of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given was during grad school, when a lot of things were happening that were just out of my control geopolitically, but I felt like I needed to do something about everything. And my advisor was like, this is where you lose. If you try to do something about everything, you will lose. You need to speak on the things that you know about and trust that the people that know about the other things will speak on those and give them the space to do that. But on social media, it doesn't operate like that. People expect you to speak on everything. And so again, it just kind of waters it down. But that advice I was given from someone that I so deeply respect, and he does such incredible work up on the Clark Fork River and restoration and joining communities over water. That advice to me is something I think about almost anytime I post anything of actual value.
That really is great advice. And
Thanks, Dr. Brian Chaffin.
Yeah, hell yeah, shout out. It is interesting too because I mean, like, I feel like anyone sees this on social, anyone who's ever been on social media sees the weird relationship people have with content creators, or like sometimes, obviously not everyone, but like the weird, I think weird, I'm using the word weird, expectations that people have from content creators to speak on everything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with that. But it's if you want certain information, you can follow other content creators. I don't know.
Well, and it kind of goes back to like the days of when we only had Hollywood celebrities, and then they would get up on award shows and give a speech about something, and you're like, what do you know about that? Like,
they don't know
type of thing. But they felt like they had to talk about it, and like they had a platform. So there is that where as a creator you have a platform, and you have to decide how to use that platform. And everybody, I mean, there's a ton of people out there who have huge followings that can use it in any way that, and they use it in bad ways, they use it in good ways, they use it in ways to make a lot of money, they use it in ways to draw a lot of awareness or to help people, so everybody has that kind of decision they have to make in how they're going to run their account. And it does get interesting when you're like, oh, I could get paid how much money to do that?
And I'm like, little do my friends on social media know that I'm like not doing this and not accepting this because it doesn't align with my values, and I'm not going to just sell out my audience. But then it's like, you do try, and it's like, you're not doing enough. And I get it. I understand the higher standard that if you're going to put yourself in a public spotlight that you're going to have to experience. I honestly respect that, because if you have a platform, you might as well use it for something other than yourself. But where's the line when that becomes performative?
And just like your professor told you, like, if you speak out on everything, what are you actually gonna stick to? There's a line from a old country song that said you have to stand for something or you fall for everything.
Yeah,
and it's kind of that. Yeah, so you have to. You can't be there for everything. You only have so much energy.
I know. Yeah. I wish I could also,
though. Right? Well,
True.
That's also an element of sustainability. You know, like, how do you keep the effort sustainable?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like I could ask so many questions about content creation, but I don't know. I know you have a lot of other creative endeavors too. So maybe we could talk about that too. Like, what other creative endeavors have you been into lately?
Yeah. So this is going to make me sound like I'm only on social media, but I promise I'm trying really hard not to be. So I don't scroll very much. Unless it's like late at night, I get on like a really funny Instagram one where you're just giggling. But beyond that, I don't scroll much. But I saw that analog was trending. And so I've been really trying to adopt that into my life, because I do think while social media can be an incredible, powerful tool for good, it can also be really detrimental to our mental health. Even seeing the good things, right? Like, I'll watch videos and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with this, but like, why do I feel kind of crappy about myself? And so I picked up knitting, and then I got scared of it, so I dropped it for a little bit. I'll probably pick that up again. Car camping season's here. That's something that just really helps me reconnect with myself and grow community with other women in the outdoor spaces. So lots of car camping coming up. I've got a few house plants, just anything that can ground me in a world that isn't just on my phone. Because I work primarily on my computer and on my phone, like honestly most people do. And so it's no longer this escape. It's just a continuation of work and a continuation of a lack of rest. And I love to read, so I read a lot. My big thing after work is like, I'm just going to go to the river. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit there. And so like yesterday, I'm like, it's Sunday. What am I supposed to do with myself? So I just went and like doodled, and I suck at drawing, but I think trying to train my brain to understand that not every moment needs to be productive, and not every venture needs to be something I'm even decent at to be worthwhile doing, that your value doesn't come from the likes or even what you've done at work. It comes from just like who you are when you're present with yourself. And that's something I'm trying to like really retrain my mind to understand.
I love that. I think that's so healthy. That's a smart thing to be doing.
It's easier
Yeah.
said than done, but it gets easier with each effort.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't tell the old Kate Spade collecting Lenny here, but you're actually touching grass. What you
I know.
described as touching
She
grass.
wouldn't believe it. She wouldn't believe it.
Well,
Do you Oh, go ahead, Greg.
no, back on you.
Well, I was just curious, like, do you feel like because it seems to me now, of course I don't
Yeah.
know, it seems to me like you have this like it authentically like woven life of like, I guess what I mean, like weaving in the outdoors
Yeah.
with your life in a very authentic way. It's not just like, you know, work, work, work all week and then on the weekends go get
Yeah.
outside and touch grass. Do you feel like, well, one, do you feel like that's true? But then also, do you feel like that's something that you've had to work at, or has that come naturally to you?
Well, it's definitely not natural. And I think a lot of people see whatever's happening on social media and assume that that is just the end all be all, or that it just is a natural thing. And I think it's so important to just like harp on the fact that it is a very beautiful, select little scrapbook of someone's life. And you don't see the difficulty and the effort behind things. So, for example, I had a comment the other day on a river video that was like, just like, how do you go out and do this? Like, I'm so tired at the end of the day. And I'm like, me too. I get done with work, but I sit and I think, like, how I live my days is how I live my lives. And I don't want to lay on the ground and look at my phone for 4 hours because I'm too tired to do anything else, even though that's how I feel and that's what I want to do. So it's a very intentional thing. I was on like a brand call a few months ago and they were like, it seems like you're always outside. And I am outside a lot, but that was with very intentional steps. Years ago, I went into my parents' room one night and I just was like in tears because I was like, I don't think I can work a normal job. I don't think I can do that normal thing. And so what that manifested in for me was essentially building out a business that I had no idea was going to happen the way it did, but it gives me the flexibility to be remote and to be a little more self-managing. And so if I'm having like a really hard day, I can probably go to the river at 2 p.m. But it doesn't mean it's not hard getting there. I actually have a ton of anxiety when it comes to going places. It's very hard for me to do things alone. Like I said, I don't have the same skill set that a lot of people think I might have for the amount of time I spend outside. I'm still learning so many of those things. And so it can be a pretty grand effort to be like, okay, I'm done with work. I'm absolutely exhausted. I had all these meetings today. I'm sick to my stomach because I've stared at my screen all day. Now I'm going to like get in the car and drive 20 minutes upstream, which is an anxiety inducing thing for me. But people don't see that, right? They don't see the intentional steps taken. I will say though that those intentional steps to live a life that is more outside are worth all of the anxiety and moments of stress leading up to it. But yeah, I would say I am outside a lot, but I also work, and so it's weaving that in, and I that's what I try to do is make it as authentic as possible. And when the authenticity is there but maybe not to its fullest extent, right? So like that person being like, how do you do this? This would be hard for me. Letting them know that it's hard for me too. And so if it's hard for me and I can go do it, you can as well. And I will help you figure out how you can go do that, because a rising tide lifts all ships. You know what I mean? The point of me getting on social media isn't to go, wow, look at me, like my life's so amazing. It's supposed to be, look at what you can do if you just decide you want to do it and you just do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how many like creators have other jobs or like
Yeah.
are working all day long, and like
Yeah.
I shoot all my videos on Saturday and Sunday because that's the only time I have to get out and actually shoot
Yeah.
stuff. Um, I want to talk to you about water a little bit because
Okay.
you
Yes.
are a big fan of water. Um, so in Colorado, I
Yep.
think are you in Colorado now, by the
I
way?
am. Yep.
Okay. So
Much love that Colorado.
there are amazing rivers and lakes in Colorado, right?
Yes.
But we're
Yes.
very dependent on the snow and the
Hmm.
winter runoff. We
Yep.
talked about it a bit at the beginning. We have not had a lot of snow this year.
Mm-mm.
What is that going to do to the rivers? And I don't know exactly what your specialty is, but
Mhm.
I was out yesterday and I forgot what river I was on, Platte, I believe, and it was really low already. And that's usually like when the whitewater is going to come in, where the
Mhm.
people are going to come in and start fly fishing here any day now. Like, what does that do to the recreation in the state when we have such little snowfall? Is it still going to be around this summer, or like is it going to be really hard to find?
Oh, I am so terrified for the summer ahead for a myriad of reasons. I'm worried for agriculture downstream, the people that are in charge of feeding us, right? Like not getting enough water. There not being enough water to allocate to those farmers, those ranchers. I'm worried about recreational tourism. I think that people will still show up, but you actually have a different set of dangers on the river if it's too low of a water year. Sometimes you don't have people show up, right? I think they still will. It's just it changes the dynamics considerably. I'm very worried about fire. I mean, we already have one not too far from where I live. It's contained now, but it's the first time in my life I'm looking around and saying, wow, like I could be part of an evac plan. And what's scariest about this is all happening in March, right? It's April now, but it's terrifying. I will say my background in water conservation is primarily on mining impacted watersheds, but that plays into it too, right? We're looking at the degradation of water resources. So whether you're talking about a mining company coming in and having historic mining damage, or you're talking about a very current climate change related issue where we don't have a big enough snowpack, they are all things that are not only going to impact our local ecosystems for the worst, but they're going to impact the people for the worst. And that's my intersection of what I study is, yes, this impacts the environment. We should be scared about that, but it also impacts us as human beings because we are part of the environment. We are part of the ecosystem. We're not separate from nature. I used to always say like something's good for the people, good for the planet. And if it's good for the planet, it's good for the people. It's because we're all one and we tend to forget about that. But like the river I'm on is at 23% snowpack. There's a good chance it may have already peaked for this season. This is the river I guided on. And so I'm, not an expert on it, but I'm quite familiar with it. And so it peaking potentially in April before the season's ever really started, yeah, that's not good. And it sucks for recreation, right? Like I don't want to go out and have it be too low, but that's a very selfish reasoning. It's scarier beyond that because what does it look like when our reservoirs don't have enough water?
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like when water becomes such a scarce resource? I mean, I think it was predicted the next set of like wars are going to be over water, and that's been an issue for a really long time. And I think people get caught up in this like, oh, we have to do something to save the planet because eventually it's going to be really bad. We're in it. This is what this looks
Mm-hmm.
like. And yes, it's the beginning, and yes, we can survive this, but like what are we going to have to give up along the way? And then who isn't going to survive it along the way? Who are the species? Who are the farmers that are going to lose their land that they have had for so long because they can't afford to irrigate it? Like what does that look like? And so yeah, it's really scary, and I don't know. And that's the biggest thing is I don't know. I've had people say, what can I do about this? Right now, I don't know, other than getting involved. You can sign your petitions, you can call your representatives, you can go to local meetings, whether it be on conservation or even just like your local economy, you should be getting involved with and learning who are the key players in your local economy. Because for mine, for a long time, it's been mining industry people trying to come in and mine this area. And a lot of times the community members don't know that, but they don't want their water resources being damaged with increased mining. So it's a really scary time that has been predicted, and there's a lot of people that are still writing it off, like, oh, it's just we're just having a little low water year. And I'm like, no, we're in it. Like, yeah, maybe next year it's better, certainly, but that doesn't mean it's okay that this year we're experiencing this so early on.
So going towards your expert, and I'm going to ask a question as a non-expert.
Okay.
Mining takes up a ton of water resources as well,
Mhm.
doesn't it? And then the second part, like I'm guessing, I heard this when I was a kid in the 80s is the solution to pollution is dilution was the phrase, which
Yep.
was like, but we had the big spill. I forget, it was something, I think it was called the gold mine spill or something
Yep.
like that. It was a couple years back. Um,
Mhm.
and where toxic waste from an old mine. And this isn't going to be totally accurate because I'm trying to remember, and
I'm
I'm
with
not a
you.
scientist. But it,
Mhm.
it, it leaked into one of the rivers, and then it caused the issue. So with a lower water table that we're going to have, is that better or worse because like there's less river to get infected by a
Mhm.
spill or something like that? It's easier to contain the waste because there's not water overflowing
Yeah.
it. Is there a way that this helps, or is it all just like not helpful at all? That I'm trying to find a glimmer of hope
Yeah.
of something that might be good.
So I wouldn't say I'm well educated enough on the intricacies of how mine drainage and like water changing levels, right? I'm not super well versed in the exact crossovers of that. I do know on like small streams though, if you have a highly impacted stream and it is very small, so like a creek, that's usually problematic, right? Because that's all the water that there is. Whereas if you have and it also depends on how much damage you were putting into the environment. You have a tiny spill in a big river, not good, certainly, but it's not the same thing as a big spill and a tiny creek. And so there's just so many different parts here that we could examine depending on the type of mining waste, the type of water being utilized, what is the watershed's current health status, right? So like the river I'm on, it used to be hugely contaminated. It's not a creek, it's not tiny, but it's also not the Colorado River. It's not huge, right? And it took a long time and a lot of effort to clean it up because there was all this mine drainage up at the headwaters going into the river. And now there's so much pride in keeping it clean and taking care of it that it's like the other side of a similar coin, right? They've done all this work to take care of it. Now what happens if there's hardly even enough water in it? And then yes, obviously that impacts the people, it impacts the local ecosystem, it impacts the fish. And so yeah, if anything gets put into that, it's an even bigger problem if there's not that much water there to start with. But any like major pollution is not a good thing, certainly. That's kind of the limited amount of knowledge I know on how does mining waste impact the changing water levels within our watersheds.
I was just making
Not
stuff
much
up.
hope, sorry.
There will be no more quizzes for this
This
podcast.
is
We'll
the
go back to
moment
content
in
creation.
Legally Blonde where she just stuns everyone in the courtroom with her.
Like I said, I don't know that much about that particular subject.
That sounded very smart and
Well, thank you.
also easy to understand. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
And I think our viewers that aren't out west don't realize how dry it is out here. You know, I've been to places in
Yeah.
Arizona that are called like, you know, like Flowing Creek, Arizona, and you get there and it's completely gone. And their stories are, you know, from, you know, in the 1920s, this is where everybody came because there was so much water and there's like no
Yeah.
water there. And there's places in Colorado, and I was just in South Dakota as well. And I was in South Dakota in February, and there's already wildfires. You know, Colorado had 2 more this weekend in Boulder and in
Yeah.
Littleton.
Mhm.
You know, so like it's just so bone dry out west. And I know all my friends in Tennessee and the East Coast are just getting hammered with rain and snow and all of that, and they're listening to us like you guys are nuts. But
Mhm.
until you're out here, like it is insanely dry. So thank you
Insanely
for
dry.
thank you for letting us talk about water during a
Oh, I
podcast.
love
Because
talking about water. It's something that I'm always learning more about. Like I said, even though I did my Master of Science in this and I've got research coming, I feel like you start learning about something and you start realizing more and more how little you know. And so I'm just like constantly on this quest to learn more and discuss more about it as I learn more and more about it. So I love any chance to do so and any chance to discuss what the current status is of our environment out here in the West, because it's scary and people know it's scary, but I think we need to continue thinking about that and understanding that and drum up ways in our head to be involved in new and creative ways, because we need systemic change. This going vegan doesn't fix this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we need to do something big and we need it done up top.
yeah,
And I like that you brought up the like interconnectedness of everything, because I think that's something that like people don't always think about, and even just as a way of getting involved, of like
Yeah.
even just going to like like a local hearing about some
Yeah.
issue, and like that, those alone are connected. I mean, it's all
Yeah.
connected. So anything going on
It
in the
is.
community is impacting the environment and vice versa. And yeah.
When you look around at your environment, you see how dry it is, how early in the season, and now you're looking at how depleted your water resources are, and across the board you're going, okay, well, how are we putting these fires out then? So it is all connected. It is all connected. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lenny, I feel like you've given us an education today. I appreciate that.
You guys are flattering me way too much. I don't know about that.
Well, we've been asking you questions the whole time, and we like to return the favor and let you quiz us. So we have no knowledge on anything, so you can't ask us anything, you know, specifically. But no,
Yeah.
no, it's only fair. You know, we've been asking you the tough questions. So if you have any questions for Becca or myself,
Yeah.
now's your chance to get back at us.
I love it. Okay, so just right off the top of my head, what was the moment for either of you that was like, oh, this is my life. Being outside is my life. Like I can think of my butterfly moment. And so I'm always curious for other people who care so deeply about the outdoors, like what was it for you that made you say, oh, this is it. Like this is the most important thing.
You know, coming up with a specific moment is hard, but I think like I grew up, running and just being outside all the time for running, and realizing that like it was the being outside
Yes.
aspect of it that I love so much. But then also, like, I grew up, I spent a lot of time growing up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. My family has a cabin up there, and like my dad would take my brother and I on hikes a lot around there and snowshoe treks and everything. I even just as a kid, like we would pretend we were characters from Lord of the Rings, and we would just be like, bounding through the woods, and I just those were some of my favorite memories, and I knew that I just always wanted to be able to do that.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, it was like my second or third hike really ever. It was
Mm-hmm.
so I got laid off December of 2019 and I was really excited. I was like, okay, I'm going to change my career. It's been 15 years. I'm going to change everything about my life. And then the pandemic hit and everything shut down.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't have a job right now. And like, the world is weird and everything's
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah.
And I went to this hike and it's one of my favorite hikes around Colorado, and I'm hiking. I go up it, and I'm struggling because it's only my second or third time ever hiking, and I get up to the top, and there's this ridge line, and instead of like just being like a single peak, there's like this quarter-mile long, almost half-mile long, like where you just walk looking at this ridge, and like I came up there, and it's like I'm not religious really at all, but it was like a spiritual moment of being like, you know what, everything's going to be okay. Like I didn't know how, I didn't know why. I just knew at that very moment that everything was going to be okay. And I knew that I wanted to keep having that feeling of being like, I have a problem in life and I can
Yeah.
come out here and I can breathe really hard and sweat a lot because I'm so out of shape. And then I can get to a certain point and just realize that it's all good. Like everything's going to be okay. And like everything slowed down, everything calmed down. And I just, at that point, I was like, it's okay. You know, that was my moment. And I've been hiking ever since.
Love that. And so I guess
I
that
do.
leads into my next question, that like what is the biggest lesson that nature has taught you? I feel like we talk so much about what we learn from other people, but I think we can derive so much deep and rooted knowledge from being interconnected with the outdoors and being one with our local environment. So I'm curious, like what has nature taught you?
My big one, I've got a couple real quick. First one is that you don't have to finish. Like there've
Yeah.
been like growing up, I was an athlete growing up, and it was
Uh-huh.
like I took one of those personality tests for work, and like competition's my number one driver. And like I would never stop doing something. Like I had to like finish, I had to win. And then I like tried to hike up a 13 or at one point was like, nope. And just like I just knew right then. I'm like, nope, this is not, yeah. And then I wrote a blog called I Tried and I Failed and That's Okay. And like for the first time in my life, I realized that you didn't have to do everything to still enjoy the journey that got you to the point where you turned around. Like there was still victory in just doing that. And I didn't have to finish anymore. And like I think the word I'm looking for is humility, is that it actually taught me humility.
Sure.
So I think that's the number one thing that nature has taught me.
Wow, what a powerful lesson. That's really special.
Yeah, that's a good one. That resonates too, I think. Coming from like a running background, a racing background of like, yeah, but then realizing yeah, nature doesn't care, first of all,
Mm-mm.
about your
Mhm.
whatever goal you had in mind today. Like
Yeah.
that's their nature is indifferent to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think for me, where my mind goes is partially in like pacing, the pacing of nature compared to
Yeah.
the pacing that we've established in like human society, I guess,
Yeah.
where like change is slow a lot of times, and that's okay. Or like things end and are reborn, or there's this book of poetry I really love called "The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On" by Franny
Mm.
Choi,
Okay.
who I think is like just one of the most brilliant poets living today. And the whole point of it is like, yeah, like there have been a lot of apocalypses already. There have been a
Mm-hmm.
lot of like things that have been really detrimental, or whatever, all these harmful things that happened, and people have moved, like nature and people and everything is resilient. And I think about that with nature too, where like, I don't know, there's a hope in that, where things maybe die, or like, there's a fire
Mm-hmm.
and it's destructive and it's terrible, but then also things are like reborn,
Yeah.
the world heals. So,
Do
yeah.
you ever do the thing where you go out on the same trail 4 different seasons
Mm.
and take a picture of like the same tree and watch
Yes.
it like, like, oh, the spring of the tree, the summer of the tree, the fall of the tree, the winter of the tree, and it's like the exact same tree, but it looks so different in every single one of those pictures.
Yeah.
I love that.
And that's in
I
just
guess,
1 year. And then you think about all the years and how it changes
yes.
over time slowly. Yeah.
I guess I've done that at this gorge I like to look over and across the seasons, summer and spring and winter. But I had a moment last week where I had been having kind of a hard time and going through some different stuff. And I went out for sunrise and was looking over this, and there's this quote, and it's something along the lines of Mother Nature never rushes, and yet everything gets done. And here I am looking over this giant, gorgeous gorge, like just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen with the sun rising on top of it. And I thought about all the time it took for nature to look this way. And in a way, I was like, wow, like nothing I could ever do, no matter how big I grow my business or my account or how many Patagonia sweatshirts I own, none of it will even remotely compare to what Mother Nature does. And yet in such a long time. And so it kind of takes this pressure off to be like, you know what, like I can slow down and I can pace with this and think there's really nothing more important than this other than taking care of our fellow person. So like chill out a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because there's so much pressure to do the best and be the best and whatever that means for anybody. Everyone feels it in a different way. And I feel like I put that on myself a lot to always be striving for more and whatever more could possibly mean. And so seeing that and just being like, nothing I could have or do will ever amount to standing here looking over this gorge that will be here way after I'm gone and was here way before I got here. Like what I do is so minuscule. So just do what I can. And which leads me into another quote, which is like, now that you don't have to be perfect, you can just be good. And those I feel like are really one-in-one with nature. And every time I go out, I think of those and it's just like, okay, just like chill out.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Absolutely. Yeah.
Time to drop my favorite quote. It's called "Screw It, I'm Trying."
I love it.
That's a quote that got me to hike, and I came up with it
Yes.
myself because I was like, I'm a fat guy, and I'm like, I never wanted to go out and embarrass myself, so I'm like, yep, screw it, I'm trying, and
I
just
love
started
that.
hiking up the hill. And you know what we're trying now? We are gonna try the rapid fire segment.
Woo!
You see that? That is what we
Beautiful
call.
segue.
That's a segue. That's in
That
the
was
business.
Seamless.
That was incredible. So these are just like quick answers, right?
Yeah, we're just going to ask real random questions.
Love it.
We've kind of made it a competition to see of our guests who can get as we talk about, like, we don't need to compete, but also,
And now be the best.
now we will be competing to see who's the best. Should we? I think Kai has gotten 90. You know Kai because we met Kai at the
Yes,
same.
love
Yeah,
Kai.
you know Kai. I believe Kai is still our current winner.
I feel like there's like a 7-way tie at 19 though.
19 questions.
Yeah.
19
Yes,
answers
19.
and they're all trigonometry, so make sure you show your work and you'll get partial credit.
This is where I log out of the meeting.
You told us earlier that you couldn't do math, so we're all going to be math questions.
I can't do math. That's a fact. I can't do math. I have no interest in doing math. I'll never do math again.
Fair enough. Same.
Agreed.
Yeah. So it'll just be 3 minutes on the
Okay.
clock. We'll go back and forth asking questions, and it's extremely important that you answer exactly right.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm ready.
I don't know.
I'm going to try to win.
We will be
Yes.
judging you.
It's all right. I'm on
Okay.
social media. Everyone's always judging me.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
I'll get us started. I got 3 minutes. All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chip.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise every time.
Stole mine. Okay. Is the book always better than the movie?
No. Because sometimes the world building is better in the movie.
What goes best with peanut butter?
Or
Chocolate.
burger.
Chocolate.
Ooh, yeah. Favorite tree?
Probably a ponderosa pine.
Winter, spring, or fall?
Summer.
Well done.
Best outdoor sound?
The silence of the desert.
Nice. Kayak or stand-up paddleboard?
Neither. I'm not doing it.
Worst outdoor smell?
someone's poop they've left on trail, either theirs or their dog's.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs or cats?
Both.
Aw. Okay, adventure travel or beach vacation?
Adventure travel for sure.
Uh, Mountains or desert?
Oh,
Ooh.
probably desert, because the deserts I live in have mountains. So we'll just
Cheating.
go desert.
We'll give it to you. But
Best form of potato?
Fries.
handwriting or typing for a journal?
Handwriting.
Would you rather go surfing or snowboarding?
Surfing.
Road trip or fly?
Road trip.
Chocolate candy or fruity candy?
Let's do fruity candy. A little sour, I'll eat it on trail.
Day hikes or overnight backpack trip?
Day hikes. I want to get more into overnight trips though.
Favorite national park?
Probably, I haven't been to that many, honestly. So we're just gonna go with like a low ball and say Glacier. Glacier's great. That's when I've been to the most.
Favorite podcast?
Yours, of course.
Well done. It's a
Easy.
trick question.
Okay, favorite color?
Pink.
Do it.
Favorite Kate Spade bag?
I have this little blue one. It was the first one I ever got. It has polka dots on it.
Okay. Oh, best trail snack.
Coconut water and the 365 brand sour gummies from Whole Foods.
Kate Spade blue polka dot bag or a backpack for hiking?
Backpack for hiking. Grown.
I've grown.
They're grown.
All right. That was the time you annihilated.
How many did I get?
5, 10, 15. That was 24. Previously, Kai had 19 and whoever else had 19. So, new winner.
Suck it.
Congrats.
Well done. We're going to have to come up with harder
actually-
questions.
Yeah.
I'm
was
running
just
out of
listening.
questions.
I did just remember, I think someone may have beaten Kai at some point, or at least tied him, because I do remember Kai saying he stopped listening to the podcast when he wasn't waiting anymore. So,
I have
Kai, if
to
you're
listen to
listening,
this.
welcome back. And sorry that Lenny annihilated your score.
Thoughts and prayers.
We can bring Kai back. Maybe we'll do like an end of the year. We'll bring everybody back for 20
Yes.
questions.
A competition.
A competition of 20 questions. I love
That'd be
this.
so fun.
This is great.
Well,
Lenny,
thanks
thank you.
so much, Lenny.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
was
Greg,
so
you
fun.
take us out. This is what you usually do.
No. Well, so Lenny, I was just wondering, like, how can people find more if they want to follow
Yeah.
along on social media? What's the best way to find you on what platforms?
Absolutely. I'm primarily on Instagram and TikTok. Those are my ones that I'm operating most often. And you can find me at The Happy Hippie, but let me spell it for you because I had to be different and unique. I had to spell it weird. So it's the THE _ HAPPI. There's no E's. I don't know why, but when the moment strikes you, that's been the tag for 5 or so years now. So if it's not broke, don't fix it, right?
It's because E equals H2O, right?
I guess.
Yes.
Lenny, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Becca, do you want to take us home tonight?
Yes. All right. That is our time for today. Thank you, Lenny. This was so wonderful. And thank you to everybody listening to us ramble. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Scrambling and Rambling Pod. Somebody said they might send us some graphic art, but just in case, you can still email us at scramblingandramblingpod@gmail.com if you want to send us some graphic art to work with. But that's all. Yeah, until next time, enjoy your rambles.
Thanks so much.